Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories. We have stories that should thrill you a little and chill you a little.
It's amazing.
What you'll hear are adventures sent in by you guys, classic stories from the pulp mags, and episodes from the golden age of radio. We have special segments like Ghost Stories with Sylvia.
That's amazing.
And These Are Your Stories. So settle in for the next hour and enjoy the show. One more thing. You just might want to prepare yourself to be taken away from today.
Another 5-minute mystery.
This 5-minute mystery is being brought to you by Dr. Jokes.
Really bad ones, I will bet.
Of course.
Okay, Ron, let's hear one.
I've got a disease where I can't stop telling airport jokes.
Oh, really?
Yep, the doctor says it's terminal.
Well, Alice, one more block and you'll behold the Brooks household.
2 whole years, Jim. It just doesn't seem possible it's been so long. You and Dorothy married and with a place of your own.
That's true, all right. Only too bad you haven't taken advantage of the old Brooks hospitality sooner.
Well, I'm here now, and I intend having a perfectly wonderful time.
Now, here we are.
Oh, what a charming place this is.
Dorothy's probably on needles and pins waiting for me to get you here. Darling, it's Jim. Here's Alice.
Jim, look.
What? Where?
There on the living room floor. It's Dorothy. Dead.
Mr. Brooks, I'm afraid you and Miss Manning will have to submit to some routine questioning.
Well, I'll be happy to help in any way I can, Inspector.
Thank you, Miss Manning. Now, Mr. Brooks, while we're waiting for some information I phoned for, I want you to tell me exactly what happened this morning.
There's nothing much to tell. Both my wife and I were quite excited, expecting Alice, that is, Miss Manning here, to visit us from Chicago. I was to wait until she called me at the office.
And you were there all morning?
Yes, until Miss Manning's train arrived and we came out here.
Well, I had written Mrs. Brooks, Inspector, telling her that I'd call Jim at the office as soon as I arrived. The train was an hour later. We could have been here early and maybe have prevented this.
Well, that remains to be seen. Apparently, Mrs. Brooks was sitting here in this chair putting red polish on her fingernails when she was shot from behind. The polish is spilled all over the carpet, and she was still holding the tiny brush in her hand. She must have recognized her attacker, and since she did not die instantly, she printed these 3 initials here on the floor with the polish. D.O.C.
D.O.C.? I wish we could tell whose initial she was trying to reveal.
You're sure you don't know anyone whose name would fit that?
Well, positive, I can't...
Why, that...
Yes, Miss Manning? Can you think of somebody with the initials?
Well, D.O.C. spells Doc, and it's Mr. Brooks's nickname.
Well, it can't be.
Yes, Mr. Brooks?
I haven't been called Doc for over 2 years. It was a nickname I picked up in school. My wife didn't like the name and never used it. Nobody in New York even knows me by the Doc. You've got to believe me, Inspector. It's the truth.
Well, that we'll see. Just a minute. Hello. Yes, Grady? Yes? I see. Well, it's sewed up anyway. Thanks. Well, you both will be happy to know our little murder is solved.
Oh, then it wasn't Doc after all.
No, Miss Manning, it wasn't Doc. I'm arresting you, Miss Manning, for the murder of Dorothy Brooks. Why did the inspector arrest Miss Manning for the murder of Mrs. Brooks? In a moment, we'll hear, but first...
What's up, Doc?
Is that some obscure rabbit reference?
It is, and it's the only thing I got out of all that. I'm guessing that phone call we couldn't hear gave all of the answers.
Indubitably.
I wonder how they expect us to solve these crazy FMMs.
Wrong. I am sure that they don't have any expectations.
So, why do we play them again?
I believe you once said, because we can.
And now, back to our story.
How dare you arrest me? I was still on the train.
Your train wasn't late, Miss Manning. That phone call just verified the fact. You came out here, murdered Mrs. Brooks, returned to the station, and called Mr. Brooks to pick you up. But that wasn't what really gave you away, Miss Manning. Too bad you didn't know Mr. Brooks was no longer called Doc when you printed those letters on the carpet. The next time you leave a name as a clue to throw suspicion, you'd better get the name right. But of course, there won't be a next time, will there, Miss Manning?
Well, I sure hope there isn't a next time.
Well, if justice is done, she should have limited opportunities.
Agreed. So, no snide remarks this week.
Well, Ron, I don't know what your problem is, but I'll bet it's hard to pronounce.
You know, BG, I would call you an idiot, but that would be an insult to all stupid people.
What's that you said?
Hello, and welcome to the podcast.
Ron, do we have a theme today?
I'm afraid not.
A collection of random stuff then?
Is anything truly random?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
We have a review of a Halloween audiobook titled A Night in the Lonesome October.
Okay.
Then we will hear 3 listener stories on These Are Your Stories.
Ooh, nice!
Our featured story is about a man and his bid to steal a planet.
Amazing!
And we will end the show with a story about World War II super spy Juan Garcia.
Well, that sounds real interesting.
It is. So, no more chatter. Let's hit the batter.
That doesn't make sense.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. Audible has sponsored the show now since July of 2019. We have reviewed more than 140 audiobooks, and the list keeps growing. Did you know that Audible has over 200,000 books available? And a lot of those are included in the free catalog. Audible is amazing, and it is the perfect companion to Ron's Amazing Stories. If you like this podcast, you're going to love Audible. So what am I listening to? A Night in the Lonesome October by Roger Zelazny, narrated by Matt Godfrey. It's that time of year when we turn to the dark stuff. I start to go out on the lookout for stories and such that I can play during the month of spooky. What I found was this story that is, well, too fun to be spooky and too spooky to be fun. Yeah, I know that doesn't make any sense, but this story does. It is a tale about a mysterious knife-wielding gentleman named Jack on his midnight rounds through the murky streets of London, accompanied by his good dog Snuff. Snuff is busy helping his master collect grisly ingredients needed for an unearthly rite that will take place after the death of the moon. But Snuff and his master are not alone. All manner of participants, both human and not, are gathering with their ancient tools and their animal familiars in preparation of the dread night. It is a brave, devoted Snuff who must calculate the patterns of the game and keep track of all the players, all the while keeping things at bay and staying a leap ahead of the great detective, who knows a bit more than he lets on. Sound good? Here's the opening from the book.
I am a watchdog. My name is Snuff. I live with my master Jack outside of London now. I like Soho very much at night with its smelly fogs and dark streets. It is silent then, and we go for long walks. Jack is under a curse from long ago, and must do much of his work at night to keep worse things from happening. I keep watch while he is about it. If someone comes, I howl. We are the keepers of several curses, and our work is very important. I have to keep watch on the thing in the circle, the thing in the wardrobe, and the thing in the steamer trunk, not to mention the things in the mirror. When they try to get out, I raise particular hell with them. They are afraid of me. I do not know what I would do if they all tried to get out at the same time. It is good exercise, though, and I snarl a lot. I fetch things for Jack on occasion. His wand, his big knife with the old writing on the sides. I always know just when he needs them because it is my job to watch and to know. I like being a watchdog, better than what I was before he summoned me and gave me this job. So, we walk, Jack and I, and other dogs are often afraid of me. Sometimes I like to talk and compare notes on watchdogging and masters, but I do tend to intimidate them. One night, when we were in a graveyard recently, an old watchdog came by, though, and we talked for a time. "Hi, I'm a watchdog." "Me too." "I've been watching you." "And I've been watching you." "Why is your person digging a big hole?" "There are some things down there that he needs." "Oh. I don't think he's supposed to be doing that." "May I see your teeth?" "Yes, here." "May I see yours?" "Of course." "Perhaps it's all right. Do you think you might leave a large bone somewhere nearby?" "I believe that could be arranged." "Are you the ones who were by here last month?" "No, that was the competition. We were shopping elsewhere." "They didn't have a watchdog?" "Bad planning." "What did you do?" "Barked a lot. They got nervous and left." "Good. Then we're still probably ahead." "Been with your person long?" "Ages." "How long have you been a graveyard dog?" "All my life." "Like it?" "It's a living," he said. Jack needed lots of ingredients for his work, as there was a big bit of business due soon. Perhaps it were best to take it day by day. October 1st. Made the circuits. The thing in the circle changed shapes, finally making itself look like a lady dog of attractive person and very friendly disposition. But I was not fooled into breaking the circle. It didn't have the smell part down yet. "Nice try," I told it. "You'll get yours, smut," it said. I walked past the various mirrors. The things locked in them gibbered and writhed. I showed them my teeth, and they writhed away. The thing in the steamer trunk pounded on the sides and hissed and sputtered when it became aware of my sniffing about. I snarled. It hissed again. I growled. It shut up. I made my way to the attic then and checked out the thing in the wardrobe. It was scratching on the sides when I entered, but grew still as I approached. "How's everything inside?" I asked. "Be a lot better if someone could be persuaded to turn the key with his paws. Better for you, maybe. I could find you lots of great bones. Big ones, fresh, juicy, lots of meat on them." "I just ate, thanks." "What do you want?" "Nothing special just now." "Well, I want out. Figure what it's worth to you, and let's talk. You'll get your chance by and by." "I don't like waiting." "Tough." "Up yours, hound." "Tisk, tisk," I replied. And I went away when it began using more abusive language. I went back downstairs, then passed through the library, smelling its musty volumes and incense, spices, herbs, and other interesting matters on my way to the parlor, whence I stared out the window at the day. Watching, of course. That is my job.
Okay, this audiobook is boldly original and wildly entertaining. A Night in the Lonesome October is a dark, sparkling gem, an amalgamum of horror, humor, mystery, and fantasy. It was first published in 1993, and it was considered one of the best fantasy novels that year. It has inspired many fans to read it every year in October, a chapter a day, and has served as an inspiration for all things Halloween. I truly am enjoying this book. Its humor to horror ratio is nothing short of amazing. Now, if that appeals to you, head to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories, and you can have it for free. Here is what Audible has set up for us. They are offering a free audiobook in 30 days to give you the opportunity to check out their service. This also grants you access to the included catalog, which is updated constantly with new stuff, and you're gonna find something that you're gonna love. So, to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. Thank you, Audible. And now, it's time for your stories.
These are your stories, sent by you, for you.
Before we get to the stories this week, I want to remind you that the month of Spooky is fast approaching, and I need more of your stories. They can be about anything, but this year I'm looking for scary stories all about Halloween. They can be true things that have happened to you, or they can be stories from the back reaches of your own imagination. So if you have one or want to create one, I want to read it. Now, let's get to your stories. This first one isn't so much a story as it is an experience with questions. It was sent in by Merle Shepard from New Mexico. I did some emailing back and forth with Merle, so I'm adding some commentary to his original email. In the end, Merle is asking for your help trying to understand just what happened. Merle has titled this one, The Shaking. My whole life I've been terrified of the unknown. Sensitive, maybe. It got to the point where my mom felt compelled to take me to a curanderia and have a limpias done on me. Editor's note: a curanderia is a healer who uses folk remedies. Limpias are a cleansing rite that can clear, heal, revitalize, and strengthen the mind, body, and spirit. They also facilitate soul retrieval, recovering sacred essence energy that has left the body as a result of trauma. Now, let's get back to the story. I've never shared this with anyone before. It happened throughout my childhood in different homes and different beds. I've looked it up, and it could very well be just my brain. Anyway, during my childhood, I would sometimes lie in bed trying to sleep, or sometimes already asleep and be woken up to my bed shaking. Softly sometimes, and a little more violently on others. Sometimes to the point where the bed would make noises. I would ask it to stop, but it never would. What's incredible is my sister would be sound asleep next to me in her own bed, but she never heard or experienced it. It could happen any time, late at night or early in the morning. The more I acknowledged it, the more it would shake. The odd thing, as soon as I got off the bed, the shaking would stop. I never understood why it would happen, and if it wasn't real, my brain did a heck of a job recreating the noises and the sensation. I would wake up sometimes and hold on to the bed to see if I could make it stop, but it never did. Once I woke up and the bed started shaking. I let out a scream for whoever was doing it to please stop. I woke my sister, the dog, my parents, and the whole darn neighborhood. My mom came running, and I thought, finally, someone is going to see this. She got to my bedside and began to comfort me. I asked her, "Can't you feel it?" She didn't know what I was talking about. Then the shaking stopped. Ron, Have you ever heard of this? Has anyone out there had any similar experiences? Merle Shepard, New Mexico. Well, I have heard of this before. In fact, I had a childhood friend who talked about it from time to time. There could be a few potential reasons for your bed to shake or vibrate at night. One possibility is that there may be an issue with the foundation or structure of your home, which is causing the bed to shake. Another possibility is that there may be some sort of electrical interference or vibration from nearby equipment or machinery that is causing the bed to shake. It is also possible that there may be some sort of paranormal activity occurring. We'll have to ask Sylvia about that one. The fact that you've indicated that you felt it in multiple beds and homes is interesting. I did do a little research and I found this. Physical things like restless leg syndrome, some sleep problems, night terrors, and sleep paralysis may give these sensations. I asked Merle if he's still having these symptoms today. He indicated that he did, but it has become less troublesome. He's currently in a school dorm at the University of New Mexico. It's difficult to determine the exact cause of the shaking. If you are concerned, it may be a good idea to consult with a professional sleep therapist. I wish I had better answers. Maybe one of the listeners hearing this has some more ideas. Thank you for sharing this, Merle. This next story comes from Dorothea Long. She writes to us from Mart Carmel, Pennsylvania. This story reminded me that there are people in this world that can see dead people. I never really thought about what that would be like to have that gift. I'm not sure I'd want it. Dorothea calls this, "My Mother Sees Dead People." I've been pretty sensitive to spiritual things my entire life. I grew up in the South in a very religious but also somewhat superstitious family. My great-aunt believed that she could communicate with spirits and regularly saw them in her home. My mother must have also inherited this gift because she is plagued with seeing and hearing spirits throughout her whole life. Some people thought she was crazy, but my sister and I, along with the rest of my cousins I grew up with, watched how it affected her firsthand. Doors used to slam, things would fly off the wall, and keys would go missing for days until one day they magically returned to the place where they had been set down. I even remember a bottle of Dawn dish soap levitating off the sink and being thrown across the kitchen. The house I grew up in has a backstory. It was built in the 1930s, and the first family to live in it was a man, his wife, and their 2 daughters. The man was a zoologist by profession and kept exotic animals in the house as well as 2 very large python snakes. One night, one of the pythons escaped its enclosure and suffocated one of the little girls to death. I'm not sure what happened afterward. My grandmother purchased the house in the late 70s, and my mother grew up there, and eventually I, my sister, and cousins did too. One evening, my mother and I were sitting on the sofa in the living room watching the Eagles play, when suddenly there was a faint cry of a little baby. We both thought that there was some interference or something on the TV, so we muted it, but the crying only got louder. We were very confused because there were no babies in the house. My mother said, "She's here. Can you see her?" To which I replied, "No, I don't see anything." My mother then shut off the TV and turned off the lights. I could not believe what I saw next. In the corner of the room was a beautiful little girl with curly blonde hair, the prettiest green eyes, and a little blue dress with shiny red shoes. She looked so real, and she had such a strong glow. She was standing in the corner, crying. As quickly as I saw her, she also disappeared. I never forgot this moment, and I never will. My mother still sees dead people, and if I'm honest, I'm pretty sure I do as well. Thanks, Ron, for letting me share my story. Dorothea Long, Mount Carmel, Pennsylvania. Well, thank you for sending in your story. We've had stories like this before, but I've never heard that both a mother and daughter can share the gift together. I would think that that would provide some comfort. Our last story comes from Andrea Mason from London, England. She is a retired nurse and just celebrated her 85th birthday. She has titled her story, The Night of the Bagman. I worked as a nurse at a hospital in the UK that was initially constructed during World War II and was supposed to be only a temporary facility. However, that was not the case. It was remodeled and expanded to slightly more modernized building later on. I recall doing a night shift during the wintertime. We had a patient admitted to us with an infection, but otherwise had no illnesses that could have affected their cognitive function. At around 2 or 3 a.m., the patient began to scream from the room that they were placed in. Myself and another nurse responded. As we entered the room, I could tell something was off right away and felt a shift in energy. Once in the room, I tried to diffuse the situation and calm the patient down. All the while, she was screaming about how there was a man with a bag over his head and that he had stood at the end of the bed watching her. Once we had calmed her down, myself and the other nurse that came with me turned to leave the room and witness what I can only describe as a shadowy figure pass through a set of double doors outside the room. We both knew that these doors are always locked and have to be unlocked with keys. The time that passed would not have been enough to unlock the doors and pass through them. Therefore, we both came to the conclusion that it was a ghost or some entity of some sort. We both were somewhat unnerved. The next evening I was back on shift and had a chance to tell my story to the COS, Chief of Staff. She told me that this was not the first time she'd heard that. She went on to say that during World War II they had to treat a group of captured SS officers. In order to keep the location secret, they had put bags on their heads. A few of those men didn't recover and had died that night. Is that what the patient saw? And what did I see? That was 40 years ago now, and it still plagues me to this day. Andrea Mason, London, England. Well, Andrea, I have no idea. I would love for you to send me the name of the hospital. Researching that background story would be fun. Thank you for sharing. Well, that's it for this time. If you have a story that you want to share, like Andrea did, head to the main website at ronsamazingstories.com. Click on the story submission banner, leave your story, give it a title, and please tell me where you're from. I'll read it if I can. Our featured story for this week comes from the series Quiet Please. It was a radio fantasy and horror program created by Willis Cooper, also known for creating Lights Out. Ernest Chapel was the show's announcer and lead actor. Quiet Please debuted on June 8, 1947 on the Mutual Broadcasting System, and its last episode was broadcast June 25, 1949 on ABC. A total of 106 shows were broadcast. It didn't get much notice during its initial run, but has since been praised as one of the finest efforts of the golden age of radio. Our story today was in pretty sad shape. I've wanted to have it on the show in the past, but I lacked the skill to restore it. However, this week I gave it another go, and this is what I came up with. While far from perfect, it can be followed. I highly recommend that you listen to it with headphones. This is one of the more stranger stories that I've heard from the show. A man collects bodies in his freezer, but he's not a serial killer or an evil man. Or is he? It is titled The Man Who Stole a Planet, and it first aired on July 26th, 1948.
The Mutual Broadcasting System presents Quiet Please, which is written and directed by Willis Cooper and which features Ernest Chapel. Quiet Please for tonight is called The Man Who Stole a Planet. I've been a very fortunate fellow, having money enough to do what I wanted to do, knowing what I wanted to do with it. I suppose I'm the best-known amateur authority on Mexico and the ruins of the Mayans and the pre-Mayans there is. Although if you're not interested in that kind of stuff, you never heard of me. So what? So if you're not, go on and read the baseball scores or tune in a quiz program or just do whatever you want to. I can't stop you. And I frankly don't care what you do if you're not interested. But if you are interested, just keep quiet and listen. And sit still. No, don't sit still. Stretch your neck a little and look down into this thing. Ever see one before? But these trees. People keep frozen foods and stuff in these things. That is, most people do. I keep dead men in it. See? Oh, no, I didn't kill him. Matter of fact, I'm not entirely sure he's dead. He doesn't breathe. His heart isn't beating. If he isn't dead, he ought to take down his sign. He was just like that when he was walking around, like a mummy. That outfit he's got on, that's the uniform of a very high priest of a race of people who inhabited a certain part of Mexico in the 5th century A.D. That fits him, too. It's his own uniform. Well, sure I know about these things. I've spent too many years at this business to be fooled. Fantastic, huh? Yeah, I know that's what you laymen expect to hear from archaeologists. Lots of stuff about walking mummies and weird curses and all that Boris Karloff routine. To take it from a practicing member of the profession, archaeology involves a great deal more grubbing in the ground and sifting wheelbarrows full of dirt than it does dodging zombies. However, here I am on a July evening in the year of our Lord 1948 with a house full of extremely dead high priests who were born in the Mexican jungle some 1,400 years ago. No, I didn't cart them back with me. No. They walked in on me. Take that supercilious smile off your face. Now, I know what you're thinking. More of that supernatural stuff. More of that H.P. Lovecraft stuff, that my blood froze in my veins at the eldritch, whatever that is, being that towered above me. Well, don't kid yourself. What you people call supernatural is just as natural as apples growing on a tree. The only thing is, our great thinkers, our figures out, they all stop when they come to something they can't explain immediately with their slide rules and their log tables and spectroscopes and stuff. And once in a while, somebody finds out something, and a little chunk of the so-called supernatural slides over into the field of exact science, and everybody says, I knew it all the time. My eyes. So if men dead 1,500 years can walk around, it's a perfectly logical explanation for it. They know the explanation, we don't. And if we ever find out, accidentally, there'll be 100,000 scientists to tell you they could have done it a long time ago, only they were working on nuclear fission and other more practical benefits for the human race. The thing is, I don't care how they do it. My interest is in why they're here. That's what affects me. Oh, I didn't tell you why they're here. That's quite simple. Well, they want something I've got, something I brought back from Mexico with me. Something I stole from them. And, I may say, something I want very much to keep. So, that's my problem, children. What's yours? Oh, excuse me. I've been doing all the talking. This is my wife, my beautiful wife. Her name is Elizabeth. You can call her Liz.
Look, don't let my husband fool you. He talks as if all this is very amusing and very simple. But believe me, he's just as frightened as I am.
You can say that again, Liz.
He's Sylvia. You see, I was with him in Mexico.
I wouldn't be here now if you hadn't been.
Please, Norman. I'm an explorer, too. Though I'm afraid I'm not much of an archaeologist, but I'm a very good cook. And I'm the serious member of this family. So I'm going to tell you what happened without interruptions, I hope, because we think maybe you might be able to help us. I don't know how exactly.
Neither do I.
But you listen. And if you can, well, this was our 14th trip to Mexico. We flew to Mexico City, then down to Veracruz, and our people met us at Merida. And...
You'll excuse me a minute, darling. I think one of our friends is looking in the window.
Oh, Norman.
Just sit still. I'll be right back.
I'm simply scared to death. We've been so fortunate this far. We always discover them in time. But what will happen if one gets in and we don't see him? Norman! Norman!
Okay. I had to bust the window, though. I better put this one away. No telling what had happened to us if some curious policeman got a look at... You see? Same uniform, same badge on his left arm.
Just like the ones carved in on the thing.
The guardian. The watcher. Okay, Christy Weekly. Have a nice sleep.
Oh, Norman, I wish you wouldn't be so flippant about things.
Flippant? Listen, sweetheart, to your mind, I'm just about ready to go over in that corner and scream. If I see one more of these... I'm sorry.
Oh, darling, hadn't we better take it back?
No. Only, how long is this going to go on? Yeah. How long is it going to go on? You've never been inside one of those great stone pyramids the Mayans built in the Guatemala jungles so many, many forgotten years ago. You've never smelled the death smell. The sour, sweet odor of the rotting vegetation that's crept in through the crevices between the stones and died 1,000 times. And the musty grave smell of those low tunnels with the maddening paintings on the walls at your elbows. The figures seem to gibber at you in the light of a Coleman lantern. Sweat. And the feeling that snakes are waiting for you in the darkness at the end. And it was the snakes of Khan, the snake god. They tore people's hearts out. They hurled their beautiful daughters to the devil god that lives in a bottomless pit. We've been in the middle of all that a lot of times. Haven't we, darling?
And the rites of spring and the harvest. The corn maidens dying horribly in the fields to preserve the fertility of the land.
They're right to be scared. We saw the pictures of what they did to their prisoners, the ones they thought had done evil to their gods. We saw what was left of the poor victims. He's got a right to be scared. We've outwitted them so far. And how long can it go on?
Take it back, Norman.
Oh, I won't. I found it, and this world of ours today can use it. It can do more good here than it ever could in a moldy underground room beneath the Giatali. And where we found it.
Tell them about it, Norman. And see if they don't agree you ought to take it back.
I don't care what they say. It's mine, and I'm going to keep it. You hear me? I'm going to keep it, I said. We'd heard about the place so many times. The place where the world lives, they call it. And the place where the world lives is what it's still called, though the world doesn't live there anymore. Not since Liz and I found the deep galleries and took away the greatest treasure that the world has ever seen. All right, now you know. When you hear a little more about it and see it, you'll forgive me for being dramatic. The greatest treasure the world has ever seen. You'll agree.
Well, tell about it.
Will you take it easy, please? We finally found a place. Let's see if I can tell you about it. A wilderness of high grass, the kind of grass we'd never seen before, higher than our heads, sharp-edged as razor blades.
My arm.
Loaves of insects hanging out of the 2-inch blades of grass. Silent, dripping, deep, crawling things. How I found the place, I'll never know. There was nothing to warn us. We just flashed our way through one more stand of high grass, and there was the door. The door was open. A kind of ramp led straight down into darkness. Darkness that seemed to begin a little too close to the bright entrance. Darkness that... We just shivered there in a horrible heat that covered us like a coffin lid. Yes, of course we went in. We lighted our lanterns, went in alone. That was what we came for, wasn't it? And I think we were the first human beings who had set foot on that long stone ramp in a great many things. I knew it. We could feel it. The passageway wasn't so bad. Except for the pictures on the walls, I think I'd rather not tell you about them. They were put there, of course, to give any intruder an idea of what would happen to him if he got caught in there. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. I want to remember this very clearly, Liz. You stumbled against something.
It was the lever that opened the inner door. And the door opened and I said, "We found it, Norman."
And the door closed behind us.
And our lanterns went out.
I put out my hand for Liz and she was still there. She stood there a minute. I got over my first fear. Liz was kind of moaning in the dark. It's okay, honey. Stand still so we don't get separated from each other. Just stand still. I light the lantern again.
No, wait. There's a light.
And there was a little light, a little faint light down there under the earth. And at first I couldn't see where it came from. But our eyes got more and more used to the dim radiance. And finally saw where it was coming from.
But there's a globe there, Norman.
So too. Come on, let's look over.
What is it, Norman?
Baseball. Doesn't it, Con?
What's holding it up?
Oh, I don't. I can't. It just seems to be suspended in the air. I'll be darned.
Like the lantern.
Yeah. Wait. Don't touch it, Liz.
Can't touch it.
What?
It's inside something, a globe of some kind. Crystal, I guess. Here.
What do you know about that? Here, hold up the lantern a little. I want to look at it close. Liz. Liz, look here. Look at this.
What?
Oh, look. Do you see what it is?
It's a little ball of silver. Oh, Norman.
You see?
That isn't possible.
Liz, this is the greatest archaeological treasure anyone has ever seen.
It can't be.
It is. See, there's the North American continent. And look around here. Europe, Asia, Africa.
It's the world.
Do you realize what it means? It means that these people knew the world was round hundreds of years before Columbus proved it. It proved that the people who lived here knew all about the world. Look, even Australia.
Yes, it is.
Perfect. Why, this will upset every scientific... My Lord, woman, do you realize what a discovery this is?
I'm afraid of it.
Oh, I found what holds it up.
What?
It's not suspended in midair at all. See these two little wires? One from each pole? And you see?
Oh, Norman, it's so beautiful and so terrifying.
Yeah, this is one treasure the Mexican government isn't going to get.
You're going to take it?
Are you kidding?
What was that?
The door blew open. I was wondering how we were going to get out again. Now everything is going to be all right. And I nearly dropped the lantern. Because when I turned around to look at the door, the rays of my lantern lit up the walls of the circular rock-hewn room we stood in. And ranged around the walls 2 feet apart were the high priests and all their regalia. Just like these you look at. All of them staring at us, each one of them with a bow in his outstretched left hand, and an obsidian-tipped arrow drawn to the head, aimed straight at Liz and me. It was only a second before I realized they were all dead. That they'd been placed there long centuries ago, but they were harmless. And I laughed. I picked up the crystal globe that the little world lived in, and Liz and I made our way outside to the world of grass and sunlight. And I, like some 20th century atlas, carried the world on my shoulders. I turned and looked back for a moment at the door. And there, framed in the blackness beyond, stood an ancient man in the regalia of a high priest, such as he left behind us when we stole the world. And the arrow on his bow was pointed at my heart. So I shot him. Fell kicking. I slapped Liz when she started to cry. And we came away. Let's look again at this first fellow I showed you. See? See the bullet in his head? Yeah, he's the same one I shot. Never forget his face. Well, there isn't much more to tell. Is there, Liz?
I think there is.
Oh, that's right. Come in here. I want you to see this world. This little silver globe that was fashioned nearly 1,000 years before Columbus was born in a Mexican jungle that hasn't even got a name. Come in. Here it is. Quite a thing, isn't it? What? Oh, yes, I managed finally to break the crystal globe it was in. The day of that big earthquake in Japan it was. Yes, I don't know why it still stays suspended in the air like that. There's reason for it, of course. No, not supernatural. Perfectly natural if we could only find out why. But there's something else I wanted you to see. Look at it closely. Isn't it beautiful? The continents in relief. See the mountains, the Rockies, the Himalayas over here? And the ocean really looks wet, doesn't it? Wonderful workmanship.
Oh, Norman, please.
Yes. Here. Look at it with a magnifying glass. See anything? No, I guess you can't. You'd have to watch it for a long time to see. I was, well, I'll say surprised when I discovered it. For it's turning. Turning on its axis once every 24 hours. It's been revolving like that once every 24 hours for a million years, friend. So you see, I have got the greatest treasure the world has ever seen, haven't I? I really did steal the world. And I'll tell you something, the world is mine. Sure. Let anybody do anything I don't like, I'll take care of them. It's my world, see? You don't believe it? Well, look here. This is a very fine platinum blowpipe. And this is water. See here? That's the Sahara Desert. What?
No, Norman, please don't.
Wait. What? You see? Nothing happened. Is that so? Liz, turn on the radio. There's a news program on now. Go ahead. Just be quiet for a second.
Norman, I don't want...
Turn it on. And be still. All of you.
Hope for immediate peace in the Holy Land. Just a moment, please. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it is reported that the Sahara Desert, the driest place in the world, has been suddenly inundated by widespread cloudbursts of unimagined intensity. The rolling sand dunes of the world's greatest desert are now submerged below a sea of water. Hundreds of persons.
There you see. Sorry if I killed some people, but... well, I may have to kill lots of people someday, so, it's practice. Don't believe it? Oh, here, take this needle. No? Well, watch me. What shall we destroy? No, not a town. We'll wait for that. Besides, I can't pinpoint a town on a globe this size, exactly. Let's see, where's this?
Norman, please don't.
Liz, will you sit down, please, and shut up? Now, I guess this is fairly uninhabited. Northern Minnesota, it's all deep forest there. And they've never had an earthquake. So,
Norman.
just jab it a few times with a needle. Feel that? That, friend, is an earthquake a few thousand miles away, a very severe one. Liz, turn up the radio.
I don't want to.
In such a time of world unrest, Mother Nature herself takes a hand and shows her own power. Yes? Oh, no. Ladies and gentlemen, here is another catastrophe. The great Mesabi Range in northern Minnesota has been completely obliterated according to first reports of a devastating earthquake that has laid waste thousands of square
Got it
miles
all.
of the United States.
Well, what do you think?
Norman.
I don't know exactly what to do. If I can just keep these high priests
Norman,
in the
please.
globe long enough, maybe I ought to just sit tight until they've all visited me and I've put them all away and then I'll be all right. I'd like your opinion.
Norman.
What do you want?
Norman. The glove.
Stop, Bob. Well, hello, brother priest. Put that down. Put it down, I say. Put it down or I'll...
No, Norman, don't shoot.
Stop, I tell you.
No, Norman.
Quiet Please for tonight was called The Man Who Stole a Planet. It was written and directed by Willis Cooper, and the man who spoke to you was Ernest Chapel. And Hildy Palmer played Liz. The voice on the radio was that of Phil Tompkins. Music for Quiet Please, as usual, is played by Albert Berman. Now, for the word about next week, our writer-director, Willis Cooper.
No, nobody has stolen the world, really. Everybody in the studio is, at least at this moment, still alive, and while they were on the air, they represented nobody living or dead, or you wouldn't have lived to hear this story, you see. So for next week, I've written a story called It's Later Than You Think, and I hope you'll listen.
And so, until next week at the same time, I am quietly yours, Ernest Chapel. Everyone is aware that the high cost of living keeps going higher. But did you know that the cost of dying is also going up? Last year, the price was $2,200,000. That's right. $2,200,000 was the price we paid for 1947 traffic accidents which injured 1,100,000 Americans and killed 32,000. We complained about the cost of helping the war-torn countries of the world, and yet we recklessly squander lives and dollars and file the expense away under the caption, "Isn't it a shame it had to happen to them?" We forget that a moment's carelessness on our part might result in it happening to us. Whether you're driving or walking, obey all traffic rules. Look right, look left, look ahead, so you won't be looking up from 6 feet under. Be careful. The life you save may be your own. This program is heard in Canada through the facilities of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Well, I hope you were able to follow that and enjoyed the story. Now, take a minute and think about it. A world at your fingertips and a chance to play God. What would you do? The lead actor on that one was Ernest Chapel. On February 10th, 1925, he was the announcer as well as the director for the first radio station in Syracuse, New York, WFBL, which stood for First Broadcast License. He worked there until 1927 and then went to Rochester, New York to work at WHAM. He also began writing for the Syracuse Herald. His column, Riding the Waves with Chap, included promotions for the radio broadcasting industry and its local station. Chapel also served as the announcer for the Campbell Playhouse and for the Adventures of Ellery Queen. He did have a brief television career as the voice of Pall Mall cigarettes from the mid-50s into the mid-60s. What was his famous tagline? Buy Pall Mall famous cigarettes. Outstanding, and they're mild. He passed away in his sleep from natural causes in 1983.
Not so important times in history.
In this segment, we take a look at historical events that may otherwise go unnoticed. We look at history with a fish-eyed lens, giving a perspective that should provide no insight to anyone or any time. But it is historical, or hysterical, as the case may be. Join us now for this event in history. Our story comes from World War II. Spanish chicken farmer Juan Garcia tried to become a spy for the MI5, but they rejected him. He then applied to become a spy for the Nazi SS, who accepted him. The SS gave him the order to start a spy network in London, but instead he decided to set up shop in Lisbon. There, he started feeding the Nazi commanders a bunch of bad intel. Every once in a while, he would be confronted about his bad intelligence. He would simply blame it on one of his fictional subordinates. The MI5 became aware of his existence and enrolled him into their ranks, and that's when his crappery started getting serious. He was given the nickname Garbo in reference to the best actor in the world, Greta Garbo. His most important work was on Operation Fortitude. He helped convince Nazi high command that the invasion of Normandy was simply a diversion and that a larger army was due in Calais. For his efforts, he was awarded the Iron Cross, authorized by Hitler himself. Not to be outdone, he was also given an MBE medal by the British King, making him one of the few people during World War II who received medals from both sides. He later faked his death and fled to Venezuela after the war, where he then ran a bookshop. That was episode number 606, and that's only 29 fewer episodes than Gunsmoke made. To Merle Shepard, Dorothea Long, and Andrea Mason, thank you for your stories today. They were amazing. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find any of the links I mentioned and how to contact us. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. Clicking that follow or like button helps us grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.
All of the vintage audio used in the podcast is believed to be in the public domain. Ron's Amazing Stories does not own the rights to any of the old-time radio used here. If you hold the rights to any of the shows played, please contact us immediately at ronsamazingstories.com.